What I want to do right now is get you some of the comments made by Harish Salve and Pakistani barrister Qureshi when they were speaking at the International Court of Justice. Over the next 1 hour, we will look very carefully at the arguments put forth by the Indian advocate and the Pakistani advocate and look at who won the battle at The Hague today. Remember, the order has been reserved. The President of the International Court of Justice said that they will announce very soon when this order will be put out at a public hearing. The date will be announced publicly. Before that, let's take a look at some of the comments in court today.
India's position has been and continues to be that Jadhav was kidnapped from Iran and appears to have been framed based upon a confession extracted from him when he was in military custody.
The chronology is as follows. Commander Jadhav was arrested in the southern province of Pakistan, Balochistan, which is mineral rich and unfortunately has seen violence all too often. He crossed in from Iran, bearing that false passport.
We'll be taking a very close look at some of the arguments put forth. Harish Salve coming across as by far the more assured, more compelling lawyer. I want to bring in now Gaurav Bhatia, lawyer, member of the BJP. Sultan Ali is joining us from Pakistan. With us also on this broadcast is General Jaswal and Rajiv Dogra. I want to go across to Sultan Ali first because Barrister Qureshi was lying. When he was speaking at the International Court of Justice, he said that Pakistan is willing to give consular access to Jadhav and that India is unnecessarily making this a big deal. At least on 16 occasions, no less, has India sought consular access to Kulbhushan Jadhav. This access has been denied. How can a Pakistani advocate lie on record in the highest court in the world?
Well, you see, the Pakistani counsel made it very clear that India and Pakistan enjoy a bilateral treaty, which is called the Treaty of 2008, which provides the provisions under which consular access can be provided to the citizens of either country if they are taken into custody. And India should have followed the Treaty of 2008 rather than go running and jumping to ICJ and jumping the gun.
No, you're not answering my question, Mr. Ali. And, unlike what happened in the International Court of Justice here, I do have the opportunity to ask you questions. Harish Salve wasn't given that opportunity on behalf of India. But I will ask you, where has Pakistan ever offered consular access to Kulbhushan Jadhav? How can your advocate stand up in court and say that access is being provided and that India is making this into a big deal unnecessarily? On 16 occasions, we've sought access. On 16 occasions, that access has been denied. How can you lie before the world?
Well, it may be a fact that India has made at least 16 applications for consular access to be provided to Commander Kulbhushan Jadhav, but the fact remains that, consular access can be provided under specific circumstances because this is not an ordinary case of an arrest, or not even a spy, but a terrorist. Therefore, special considerations have to be made, and I'm sure they will be under consideration according to the Treaty of 2008.
I want to bring in Rajiv Dogra as somebody who's been a former diplomat. Mr. Dogra, your sense of how the day went. We've heard the Indian side, we've heard the Pakistani advocate. How confident are you that we've come away with honors won on the first day of this trial? Because what the Pakistanis were trying to tell the jury at the International Court of Justice is that A, there is no jurisdiction and therefore there is no point in providing any form of relief. The order will be provided later. How confident are you about how things went on day one?
Well, let me comment on the entire issue. As someone who at the beginning of his career was responsible for campaigning for Dr. Nagen Singh as the judge of this supreme body of law in the world, I know how respected these judges are and I know how much of hard work and how much of experience they have behind them, not just on domestic law, but especially on international law and its interpretation. So I think they will not be swayed by theatrics, they will not be swayed by aggression which unfortunately was the case in the 6 o'clock statement, a statement which did not last for the full 90 minutes. On the other hand, I mean, naturally I'll be biased towards my own country's representation, but at the same time I think an unbiased man would say that it was a dignified statement, it was technically correct statement, and it was a legally sound statement. So the judges are going to take into consideration these issues.
Do you see
As
the
far as
verdict being,
Pakistani statement
the order that is to
concerned,
come
there
out
were two
on
parts
India's
to it.
appeal?
One,
how soon do you see that being put out? They said they will announce when the order will be put out in a public setting. When do you see that happen? How soon will it happen?
well, that's difficult to judge, but I think it'll take at least a week, because any time sooner would be too premature. So between, let's say, 5 to 6 days, I expect some order to come out.
Yes, advocate yourself. One of the things the Pakistani counsel said in court is that there is no urgency. He says that at least 6 months is what the Indian side is taking. In other instances, the examples he cited were death sentences which were to be handed out in 7-10 days, in one case in lesser than that. So he says A, there is no urgency, B, he says there is no ultimate jurisdiction, so therefore there is no point in providing temporary relief that will not be valid. And thirdly, the Pakistani authorities had made it clear that Jadhav was not eligible for consular access. So what's your sense of how the day went, the arguments put forth by Harish Salve and Pakistan's response? Gaurav Bhatia, do you hear me?
Yeah, Rahul.
Yes,
May I come in?
Gaurav, I'm asking you about the response from the Pakistani
hear me,
counsel,
Rahul?
who said that there is no urgency. He says that even India is saying it could happen in 6 months. 6 months is a lot of time, therefore no immediate order be given because there is no urgency. And he also says that the International Court of Justice has no jurisdiction in this case. What did you make of Pakistan's counter to India's arguments?
No, Rahul, let us first see the things that are relevant. That there is a question looming large over the Pakistani administration, that why was military court trying Kulbhushan Jadhav, and why was not a civil court trying? This was not a case that should have been tried by the military court. And second, I think denying consular access itself shows that proper procedures were not followed. The confession statement that the Pakistani government is relying on itself, because the consular access was denied, it can't be determined whether it was voluntary or not, or whether it was extracted from him. And on the question of jurisdiction, it is a technical plea which has been countered very strongly and vehemently by India, and we are being led by one of the most able lawyers, Mr. Harish Salve, and I think the ICJ is well within its jurisdiction to even decide the issue of jurisdiction. Having said that, I would say that why was it that Pakistani government was denying consular access? Was it because they did not want the truth to come out? The medical reports of Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav have also not been provided to the Indian government. So definitely, when you violate Vienna Convention, which clearly mentions that consular access has to be given, and both India and Pakistan are signatories to these Vienna Convention, it is clear that rule of law does not prevail in Pakistan. Rather, they have decided on a verdict which is death sentence, and then they are tailor-making laws to ensure that that death sentence is executed, which is not good for any democracy which believes in rule of law.
How soon do you see, Gaurav Bhatia, the International Court of Justice deliver their order on India's plea that in the least the death sentence must be put on stay, and in a best case scenario, India is seeking that the death sentence be annulled? How soon do you see that happen? You're an advocate yourself. If you were sitting dispassionately in a court, observing the arguments presented by both sides, what do you think the judges would be thinking when they heard this? Gaurav Bhatia.
Rahul, one thing is clear, that we can't preempt the timing, but I'm sure that all the judges who are very eminent judges of their respective countries, and they comprise of the bench, are very sensitive that there is an urgent need to pass an interim order to ensure that the sentence that has been pronounced is not executed. And I'm very sure, being aware of the responsibility, the faith that the entire nation of India has entrusted on them, they will take suitable measures to protect this human life. They will ensure that human rights are not violated, and therefore an interim order for sure, some protection will definitely be passed at the earliest.
To go across now to Gaurav Sawant. Gaurav Sawant is our strategic affairs editor. He's been tracking this story all through the day at The Hague. You've been speaking to the Indian delegation at the International Court of Justice. Gaurav, what's their sense on how day one went? How confident are they that at the very least Kulbhushan Jadhav's death sentence will be put on stay? We're asking for annulment of the death sentence. What did they think of Harish Salve's arguments and Qureshi's counter?
India looks extremely confident, Rahul. I had a long chat both with Harish Salve and also with officials here at the Indian mission. They looked extremely confident. They were also aware when India Today broadcast that story about Pakistan's big attempt to put out a video. Sources had already said that this will not be permitted by the International Court of Justice. And as soon as the Pakistani side began their side of the story, they wanted to put out that video, but the International Court of Justice said no, and India was well aware of that. So India is well abreast with the latest developments, with the law, and as far as the law is concerned, both Harish Salve and the Indian mission are confident that Vienna Convention wasn't followed by Pakistan. As far as Pakistan is saying that they offered consular access, they are being economical with the truth, because they offered conditional consular access on the acceptance of the fact of the contention that Kulbhushan Jadhav was a spy, and that was unacceptable to India, Rahul.
Okay, and how soon do you see? Now, what's the procedure ordinarily after arguments get over in the way that they did today? How soon will the jury at the ICJ be ready with their initial order?
Rahul, when we were briefed by the International Court of Justice this morning, they said this has been one of the rarest cases where the court sat almost immediately, one of the fastest that they sat. India approached the court on the 8th. On the 9th, the president of the court passed an interim order requesting Pakistan to maintain status quo, which means not hang him. And on the 15th, with 11 judges, they sat and they heard the case. So this is really quick. Harish Salve was of the opinion, and he said this on record on India Today, that he expects within a week or at the most two, there will be a verdict. And that is something that Pakistan does not want. Pakistan wants either this case to be thrown out, or not to be heard, or it's challenged it on the aspect of jurisdiction. But India is hopeful, and that interview that we played out on India Today with Harish Salve, he said he expects a verdict within a week or at the most two.
Okay, Gaurav, stay with me for a moment. I want to play out excerpts of that interview that Gaurav Sawant did with India's advocate Harish Salve, who was in fine form, arguing on behalf of the Indian government, arguing in defense of Kulbhushan Jadhav, and by taking apart the case that Pakistan had sought to prop up. Here's a look at Harish Salve on a treadmill, interestingly, talking to Gaurav Sawant.
They say, a healthy mind in a healthy body. We saw Harish Salve's healthy mind at the International Court of Justice. He is with me here at the gym for the healthy body. Mr. Salve, we saw the healthy mind in court. Now it's the healthy body you're working on? Okay, so the gym speed is pretty good. He's on the treadmill. How long are you on the treadmill today? 1 hour, non-stop. Excellent. Does that help you in a court of law? How?
Cleans your head up.
Absolutely.
Stress buster.
This is a stress buster. Were you stressed at any point of time?
Always. It's a big responsibility.
It is. To save a human being's life.
Always.
How confident are we that, our points are getting across to the 11-member international community at the ICJ?
I think they did.
Does Pakistan have a case anyways?
That I'll tell you at 4:40.
So,
Mr. Salve, Pakistan is in violation of the Vienna Convention. You've proved that in a court of law. You've proved from past instances. Now, the judiciary goes by past instances, sir?
Yeah, precedents.
They'll go by precedents. And we have a strong case.
I hope so.
And so, which means, God willing, we will save Kulbhushan Jadhav from the gallows.
I'll tell you more at
So what we see Mr. Harish Salve do at this point of time is exercise. Exercise, he'll be back 1 hour at the treadmill, then he'll be back. You'll also be countering Pakistan's contention. No.
That's not the style.
Okay. So now we'll only hear Pakistan and...
This is for provisional measures. They've heard our case, they heard Pakistan's case, take a view.
And how soon can we expect a verdict?
Pretty soon.
Tentatively a time frame? Couple of weeks. Mr. Salve, as always, many thanks for speaking to India today. So 1 hour at the treadmill, then back at the International Court of...
Okay, there, Harish Salve, Gaurav, I thought you'd take off your jacket and start working out with him in the gym. Fortunately, you didn't do that, which is good. But now question is, he's not being very candid about what he expects would happen. And naturally, till the time the order comes in his favor, no advocate likes to make unnecessarily tall claims. But from the perspective of the Indian side, did things go the way that it expected? Because the Pakistani side too had a couple of very strong points. One on India not responding about this passport, supposed passport of Kulbhushan Jadhav. It has a picture. He said with a Muslim name, whose passport is that? That's one question they asked. Then they asked about jurisdiction. They said that Pakistan has already informed the International Court of Justice that Pakistan will not take any matter relating to national security to an international forum. So they had a couple of strong points which they made before the jury at the ICJ.
Rahul, on the issue of India not responding on the passport, earlier when we'd spoken to the Ministry of External Affairs about this, they said they didn't even know whether this passport was genuine. Unless they meet the person, unless they interact with him, they would not know. This was their take at that point of time. We're still waiting to meet both Harish Salve and officials of the Indian Embassy to get more clarity on the aspects that the Pakistani side has raised at this point of time. On the issue of Kulbhushan Jadhav, Pakistan alleging he's a terrorist, well, for that, again, there is no evidence that has been put forward in domain. On what grounds are they saying he's a terrorist? That's again a case that India says, give us evidence, give us the charge sheet, and on the basis of that, will they take the case forward? Again, some points have come from Pakistan, but not the full story. So Pakistan, according to the Indian side, is being economical with the truth.
Thanks very much, Gaurav. I'll come back to you in a short while from now. I want to bring you now some more arguments and counter-arguments that played out at the International Court of Justice. Here is Salve versus Qureshi.
That after his arrest, a confessional video was recorded on 25th March. The FIR was registered on 8th of April. The accused was interrogated in May 16, and in July 16, a confessional statement was recorded before a magistrate. The court-martial recorded summary of evidence on 24th September 2016, and in 4 proceedings culminating on 12th February 2017, the trial was over. These facts establish beyond the shadow of a doubt that the trial was conducted without informing the accused of his rights under the Vienna Convention, without granting consular access to India, in denying the accused and India to arrange for legal representation.
The passport plainly requires explanation. There is the confession, which is in the bundle that was given to the Indian authorities, together with, significantly, the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1373.
An Indian national was in military custody. He was made to confess, and then he was tried for offences and awarded death penalty. The prejudice caused by egregious breach of the Vienna Convention assurances provided for in Article 36 is writ large and does not merit any further elaboration.
There are plainly qualifications within the Vienna Convention itself which point to the exclusion of the operation of the Convention with respect to acts of this nature. Article 55 makes it clear that there must be no interference in the internal affairs of the receiving state. That itself makes it plain that if an individual is accused of espionage, terrorism, consular access, which may involve compromising evidence, which may involve exacerbating the threat for the receiving state because of coded communication, cannot possibly be anything other than a breach of Article 55.
Harish Salve far more measured, and the other side, Advocate Qureshi, looking very, very testy as he put out his arguments. I want to go across to General Jaswal from a military perspective, not so much from a legal perspective. General Jaswal, and from the perspective of an Indian patriot, your sense of how day one at the International Court of Justice went. Are you hopeful that we'll be able to get Commander Jadhav back?
Firstly, I stand at a disadvantage because I'm amongst a very legal-minded people. And secondly, I would say that our Indian counsel, Harish Salve, has done us proud. I will also dabble into slight amount of legal aspect, if you allow me. Just before the proceeding started, a member of the ICJ tribunal had clearly said that the ICJ is going to focus on the conventions which are there, the violation of convention, and not the procedures which have gone, down below. Whether Article 36 was followed or not, it had clearly said that will be the core issue. Secondly, the entire gamut of Mr. Qureshi's justification was based on the confession. He says he was made to confess. Made has got a lot of meaning. And as he said, he confessed, it has a different meaning. So you can read between the lines. Third, as far as the jurisdiction is concerned, he had quoted about the Atlantic plane which was shot down, and where India had won through a decision of Mr. Gilbert in 2000 by 14-2, that what Mr. Soli Sarabji had said, that the ICJ has no jurisdiction because of a ruling of 1974, where we had applied to the ICJ that if in case India and Commonwealth countries where multilateral agreements are there, then we shall be exempted from the ICJ. In this case also they are quoting this 2008, but then when they're not following the procedure, because 1991 again we had said in the case of the plane that no military plane to be within 10 kilometers. So that was all justified. In this case in 2008 what they're saying, that we should have not gone to the ICJ because we have bilateral relations, etc. But when they violate the Vienna Convention, we have to go to the ICJ. So their question on the jurisdiction part of it, well, that is also not holding any water.
I want to take a very quick break. Proceedings at the International Court of Justice at The Hague. Joining us on this broadcast is Arvind Singh. He's joining us from Mumbai. He is a friend of Kulbhushan, has risen in unison in support of Kulbhushan Jadhav. The most concerned, naturally, have been friends and family. And Arvind Singh, as you saw the proceedings at The Hague today, did you feel reassured sitting where you were in Mumbai that justice will soon be done and that Kulbhushan Jadhav will be spared the gallows and he will come back to India? Stay with me just for a moment. I'm told that Ashtar Ausaf, Attorney General of the Government of Pakistan, is joining us live on this broadcast. Mr. Ausaf, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Mr. Ausaf, welcome to India today. I want to begin by understanding from you the approach of the Pakistani advocate at the ICJ. You're saying that Pakistan has offered consular access to India. India, sir, has come on record saying we've asked for unconditional consular access 16 times. 16 times that consular access has been denied. And yet the Pakistani advocate goes at the highest court of the world and says that India has been given consular access. That's not even factually correct, sir. Hello?
He's factually correct. He's factually correct, and no misstatement has been made. In fact, I'm sorry to say that India has been misleading the world and also the court. I don't understand as to why India, if it was so keen to have consular access, waited for full 1 year to go to the court and then make these statements. When Pakistan, it was Pakistan itself which had approached the Indians and pointed out that here was a person and gave a copy of the passport. And the first thing that the Indian embassy said that they had absolutely no idea who this person was. And then when Pakistan brought the matter before the EU ambassadors and had a press conference in Islamabad, that they woke up from this slumber and then got up and said, we need to have this consular access. And we asked then as to the antecedents of this gentleman. And we found that he was a serving naval officer. And how would you like to have a serving armed forces officer in your country asking for the embassy asking
so
for...
So first and foremost, he's a former commander of the Indian Navy. He retired. The date of retirement, we've got his friends with us, is a publicly known fact. He retired many years ago. It's not as if he's retired recently. And basic human rights, like giving Kulbhushan Jadhav a defense lawyer, like allowing his parents to come and visit him in Pakistan, their visa application still pending. How can anybody in India believe that justice will be done? Pakistan so far has run this matter like a kangaroo court.
Do you know that the allegation was that he was kidnapped from Iran? When was he kidnapped from Iran? Who kidnapped him? Where is the incident report? All those things have been said. It's very unfortunate that such a stance was taken. As to his retirement, do you know how old he is? Do you know how old this gentleman is?
47. Yes, why? What's the point I'm trying to make?
47. And how many years ago did he retire?
So, in the Indian armed forces, you can retire after 20 years. What's the point that you're trying to make? His retirement from service is a publicly known fact.
I'm just stating the facts. I'm stating the facts and not making a point. And if somebody's telling me that he retired as a commander, and commander is a very senior officer 20 years ago, then how old was he? He was 27 when he became a commander? Well, I think the Indian team ought to have put their facts right before the court.
They did put their facts right. So he retired just a few years ago. You're saying that they sought consular access now. In fact, they've been seeking...
many years ago.
A few years ago, I said, sir, and they've been seeking consular access to Kulbhushan Jadhav from the time it was publicly announced that Kulbhushan Jadhav had been picked up by Pakistan. He was in Iran as a businessman. He was brought in. You've seen what the German ambassador had to say. The German ambassador to Pakistan said he was picked up from close to the Iran-Pakistan border, kidnapped by possibly the Taliban over there or the militia that operates in that region, and then sold to the ISI. And that's how Kulbhushan Jadhav, Indian businessman, ended up in Pakistani custody.
Why would such a thing would happen? Why would somebody be picked up from... And what was he doing if he was doing within the borders of Pakistan? This is an incredible story. And the German ambassador, we don't know anything about what he said. And this may well be a fabricated story. We should not be going by stories. We should be going by facts. And the facts are very evident. They've been brought before the court. The court will be looking at the matter in its totality, and I think we should save our breath for the court. Now that the court is there, we should not have any media trial.
No, because this is a clear violation of the Vienna Convention. The fact that
It is not a violation of the Vienna Convention.
So Pakistan is supposed to provide consular access to Kulbhushan Jadhav. Any national of another country picked up is supposed to be given consular access. India has applied for consular access 16 times. 16 times that very basic request has been denied. Why was he denied a defense counsel? Isn't that what justice is? Shouldn't he be allowed to pick a defense counsel of his choice?
He has had defense counsel of his choice.
How do we know that?
Access to lawyers.
How do we know that? We don't know that, Mr. Asaf. We don't know. If the Indian government were involved, if we'd picked a defense counsel like we picked Harish Salve, we know that we've put our best foot forward. This trial was a sham trial that you conducted behind a secret veil. We don't know how long the proceedings went on for. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks. Who knows? And who knows whether he even had a defense counsel? You're saying he had a counsel of his choice. I find that very hard to believe, Mr. Asaf.
Don't believe what you don't want to believe. It is not the question of your belief or my belief. It is what the court will believe, and the court will have a say from your side and a say from our side. Now that the matter is in court, I think you should save your breath and I'll save my breath and wait for the court verdict.
Initially, Pakistan seemed to suggest that it will not go to the International Court of Justice, that what India was doing was inappropriate and that they would not respond. Now we're seeing Pakistan say, yes, we will come to the International Court of Justice, we'll present our case, we want these hearings to take place. What seems to have changed in the interim, sir?
Nothing has changed. We are consistent. It is India which said a few years ago, in 1999, that ICJ did not have any jurisdiction. It is India which has changed its stance. India's arguments are on fire. India said when it is a matter between two Commonwealth countries, the ICJ will not have any jurisdiction. It is the Indian stance.
But you've left
Now
India with no option, Mr.
are
Ashraf. Given the fact that basic human rights are not parameters, are not being kept in mind, that his family is not being allowed to meet him, why should Kulbhushan Jadhav's family not be given a visa to come to Pakistan? Is that not a very basic requirement? Why should they not be allowed, sir? What are you scared of?
Tell me, when was a visa application made?
They've made a visa application several weeks ago. They made one after the death sentence was announced.
Hey, wait a minute. You tell me this man was arrested a year ago.
Yes.
And the family wants to see the person only a few weeks back?
I'm sorry, the family tried to go to Pakistan even earlier, and they're trying to go to Pakistan now. You don't have any defense. You don't have any defense for why a visa is not being granted, and you're questioning the motives of the family that is already in grief with the fact that that their relative Kulbhushan Jadhav has been wrongly arrested by Pakistan.
The lady has already made an application. That application is being entertained. It's been looked into, and due process will be there. I can assure you this much.
No,
and also,
why hasn't the visa been granted so far, sir? It's been many days.
I'm not the Foreign Office. And I can find out for you, since you put this question, I will, you can call me and I'll give you a reason why a visa has not been granted or is being granted. But the question is not that. The question is, what was India doing for full 1 year?
For one full year, on 13 occasions before the death sentence, we sought consular access for Kulbhushan Jadhav. That's what we were doing. We were seeking to meet him to build a case of defense. You aren't allowing any Indian to meet Kulbhushan Jadhav, and you're saying, what is the Indian government doing?
Yes. Why could India not go to the international court earlier? Why could it not do it bilaterally? Why was all this not done? Why did India deny that Kulbhushan was an Indian national?
Sir,
now,
the Indian High Commissioner in Pakistan has explained to your Foreign Office in Islamabad. The Indian Foreign Office in India has called the Pakistan High Commissioner, explained to them this matter has been taken up bilaterally time and again. India's appeals falling on Pakistani deaf ears, leaving the Indian government with no option but to go to the International Court of Justice. What choice have you left us with, sir?
The choice is very clear. The choice is, if you were to send spies to Pakistan, the choice is very clear. If you were to send people who are there to terror finance, then Pakistan will defend itself. You have no right to send somebody to Pakistan to destabilize it. You have no right to send people who are spies.
Well, you haven't been able to prove so far in any convincing manner that he's a spy. You haven't even been able to convince us that he was actually arrested in Pakistan and not kidnapped from Iran. You haven't given us any consular access. His family is not being allowed to meet him. He's not even been given a defense counsel. And you're preaching to India, Mr. Ashraf?
Yes, sir, I am. And I'm not preaching, I'm stating the facts. And what would you do? You would also react in the same manner if there was a spy in your country.
So first, it hasn't been proven that he's a spy. That's the fact, Mr. Ashraf. It's very easy to disconnect the phone and walk away. But very clearly, basic questions about why India is being repeatedly denied consular access, why his family is not being given a visa, and there the Attorney General, their senior most law officer, makes it seem as if he has no idea that the family has asked for a visa to go to Pakistan. Arvind Singh, as the friend of Kulbhushan Jadhav, what are you making from what you just heard the Attorney General say? What are you making of Pakistan's response at the International Court of Justice and the manner in which the Indian government is trying to get Kulbhushan back?
What Attorney General said was in sync with what Pakistani has been doing, and in fact from very beginning they have been sitting on pile of lies as such. Family always wanted to go and meet. I mean, just tell me who the family would not like to meet the dear one who has been caught in some remote place. This is pure lie what he was saying about family has not tried going. They never allowed them to come over there. In fact, as you rightly said, the consular access was been denied all the time.
Okay, Rajiv Dogra, you just heard the Pak Attorney General give us the official position from Pakistan. They seem to be in a total mode of denial. You know, what did you make of what you just heard the Attorney General say, Mr. Dogra?
Well, I think the first things first. How do we know that they have got a person called Kulbhushan Jadhav in their custody? The normal international practice is that you are given consular access. Absolutely. That's the entire purpose of consular access, that you establish the identity of a person. The Attorney General that you just talked to was waving the passport. Pakistan is expert in manufacturing fake currency and fake passports. So why just one? They would have produced 100 passports for so-called Kulbhushan Jadhav. So Pakistan is bluffing its way out of a difficult situation. The other thing I want to point out beyond this particular issue is the entire proceedings of today's afternoon session, when Pakistan's official representative, the Director General for South Asia, he was so aggressive as if he was speaking on behalf of the army rather than a civilized government. And as far as the advocate was concerned, as you very rightly pointed out, he was being too clever by half. He was sarcastic in the entire proceedings, but he faltered when he came to the bilateral consular agreement. Then if you play the tape again, you would find that he was not on sure grounds. He was taking out one section after another, then losing his way. So Pakistan obviously, and starting with their foreign minister, I think his statement of 3rd March of this year is very telling. On 3rd March he says Pakistan is preparing the case. By 10th April, the military court has pronounced the judgment that he has to be executed. And then in the judgment itself, which was quoted by the foreign minister, they say that as far back as 24th of September, we started preparing the case, 24th of September 2016. And by 21st of September 2016, they had already held the first hearing. So they are manufacturing lies as they go along. We have to now, besides International Court of Justice, we have to go to the court of the world opinion and expose those lies.
Okay, I want to ask Gaurav Bhatia what he made of Astar Osif, the Pakistani Attorney General, speaking live to India today, making up stories. He's saying that, you know, why didn't you ask for consular access 1 year ago? Why are the parents waking up now? You know, now we know the facts, Gaurav, because we're looking at this case closely. The judges at the International Court of Justice are just hearing two sides argue, and if the Pakistani side lies through its teeth, how will the judges know what the truth really is?
Rahul, it doesn't appear that the Attorney General himself was convinced about the facts that he was presenting on your channel. And I think the falsehood is writ large. It was so evident that, you know, it was difficult for anybody to get convinced with those words. Especially so because he did not answer your pointed questions Firstly, why did you deny the consular access? Second, why was he not provided a lawyer of his choice? And more importantly, I would like to just make 2 points. These military courts were formed in 2014, and there are international reports to say that these trials where more than 217 convictions have taken place are kept under wraps. The charges are not even shared. And when people ask for information under the right to information, no information is provided. So these are kangaroo courts, and these are not courts established by rule of law. However, I would say that Sushma Swaraj ji, as the External Affairs Minister, by taking this case to the International Court of Justice, has done a great help to the entire case. For the reason, today there is a lot of material on record, and the facts that have been placed by the Pakistani side before the International Court of Justice cannot be changed now, because we all know that Pakistanis are known to fabricate, to change and alter facts. So therefore something has come on record which would help India even in the future, and diplomatically, morally, this is a big victory, and we have exposed Pakistan in the international community by filing a case and bringing out the truth.
We've seen so far what the two advocates who argued for their countries said at the International Court of Justice. Let me bring you a quick excerpt of what the two agents are foreign service officers who spoke before the advocates spoke, presenting the perspective of the two countries. Let's listen to what the agents had to say.
I appear before the court on behalf of the Republic of India with the hope that the court would indicate provisional measures so that the death sentence which has been awarded to Mr. Jadhav through a farcical trial in a Pakistan military court in violation of the rights guaranteed to Mr. Jadhav and India under Article 36, Paragraph 1 of the Vienna Convention would be set aside and not carried out pending final decision of the court on India's application.
India has been unable, or perhaps more accurately unwilling, to provide an explanation for this passport, which is the most obvious indication of covert and illegal activity. India could simply have denied that the passport was genuine. We submit that India's silence is telling.
It was an act of desperation by grieving parents. The parents of Mr. Jadhav applied for visa on 25 April 2017 to travel to Pakistan. There has been no response. The Minister of External Affairs of India has written to the advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan on Foreign Affairs on 27 April 2017 for his personal intervention in the matter, but there has been no response.
To use the International Court of Justice as a stage for political theatre, we regret that this has been done. We will not respond in kind. Our counsel, Mr. Qureshi, will explain why it was wrong for India to invoke the exceptional provision mayors jurisdiction of this court.
A lot of theatre, a lot of drama, General Jaswal, from the Pakistani agents at the ICJ. It almost seems that they think this is a college debating society, lots of drama in what they're saying, vague on facts, high on theatrics.
Absolutely, Mr. Qureshi was not on firm ground. But I'm totally appalled that the Attorney General, he's making certain statements. One, he says that we could have resolved it bilaterally. What was the 16 requests which were there, which went to them? Why did they not give it? Why did they make it conditional? Two, they said that he's been arrested so long back, quite some time back, and it is now that the family is applying. Does anyone know the location of where Jadhav is? Where does the family go? The Indian counsel over there, High Commission over there, doesn't even know where Jadhav is. So even if in case the family travelled over there, had they applied earlier, where would have they gone?
So
no one knew as to where Jadhav
is. Very, very glaring loopholes in the arguments put out by Pakistan. This is where I'm ending just this part of the broadcast. Gaurav Bhatia, General Jaswal, Rajiv Dogra, Arvind Singh, thank you for joining us. Also, Ashtar Osaf was the Pakistani Advocate General, one of the senior most law officers. Very important to show glaring inconsistencies and patent lies in what the Pakistani Advocate General is saying.